voices have come to mean other people's opinions. It is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our news site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Greetings, my esteemed audience. Welcome back to the Community Organizer Show every Sunday from 2 to 3 New York time. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing our shows with your networks, and thank you for encouraging us to continue to host this show. My name is Sheikh Musa Drammeh. I am the host, and the executive producer behind the scene is Mutiu Olawuyi, and the show is facilitated by Parrot TV. So thank you for joining us, and please continue to share and continue to patronize us and continue to support us. So the Community Organizer Show was created to amplify our local community organizing activities so that people will be encouraged to take action in improving the quality of life in their localities, and to fight for that which need to be fought in order to create public safety, peaceful coexistence, and good life for all residents. So today, I'm here to talk about our upcoming event. I would say, the most important event that we will be hosting, this year. The virtual one will be taking place online on May 25th, Africa Day, and the in-person event will take place in September, on September 24th, Sunday, September 24th in New York City. That event is what we call Africa Agenda Summit. Africa Agenda Summit. The virtual one will be broadcast live on Saturday, May 25th, during the celebration of Africa Day. So Africa Agenda Summit was conceived because Africans are divided in terms of their attention globally. Africa has Africans all over the world, by force and by choice. When I say by force, I meant those who were removed from their continent through transatlantic enslavement terrorism. And they have been calling home, any place outside of the continent. And they are now, numbered in, over 150 million. Over 150 million of Africans residing just in Americas, North America and South America, and then, the Caribbean. So those Africans were removed forcefully against their will. But in addition to that, you also have Africans who migrated for, educational reason or for economic reason or for avoiding, persecution or political, attacks or, whatever lifestyle attacks or whatever that may be. So, but they no longer feel safe, on the continent. So therefore, they left and sought refuge in different part of the world. And, these Africans are also numbering in millions and millions, of them. And these Africans do not have complete, cancellation or cut off ties with their continent. They still, go back and forth, and they still send remittance, and they still build businesses, build homes, and support families back home. So, and the remittance that they're sending have been very beneficial to some of the countries that receive the highest remittance, such as Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, and Kenya, and Ethiopia, just to name few that receives billions and billions and billions of dollars in remittance, from Africans in the diaspora. So today, I want to discuss about these upcoming events and how it can galvanize our, refocus on Africa. We need to refocus on Africa because Africa is the most consequential continent in the entire universe. It's the first, and I'm sure it will be the last. And it is a continent that sustains the globe based on human resource and natural resource. Forceful confiscation of the resource, as well as mischievous contracts, as well as any other way. But the bottom line is Africa's resources have been the catalyst for development in Europe and in the Americas and now in Asia. Because God endowed Africa with so much resources, and so we want attention, to be focused there, so that Africa's resources benefit Africans. Africa's resources must benefit Africans. The problem we have is that you have the most resourceful continent with the poorest population. This dichotomy isn't jiving with the young Africans at home and abroad. They're fed up. They said we cannot tolerate this dichotomy. We have the richest continent and the poorest people. Why is that? And yet, multinational corporations have been reaping billions and billions of revenues out of Africa. European governments and, others have been, reaping Africa of billions and trillions of dollars. Even Africa's artifacts are in the European museums. I mean, how worse can it get? Everything about Africa is being stolen, confiscated, robbed, including Africa's dignity, including Africa's future if we're not careful. That is why we've decided, the African leaders here in New York City, who have been very busy trying to find ways in which they can protect Africa's sovereignty and Africa's destiny and Africa's resources and African interests, have decided that it's time, to galvanize, Africans and friends of Africa and those who have, those who are stakeholders, on the continent to pay attention now, because we're so divided into other people's affairs, conflicts, all over the world. Africans are reading about it and paying attention, debating, but yet the conflict at home barely noticed, barely reported on. Our people are dying, displacement, internal conflict, 15 to 35 ongoing conflict right now on the continent. Yet, it does not get attention to the media, does not get attention to the public, does not even get attention to the Africans. But yet, the African scholars and African diplomats and, Africans in general, they are busy paying attention to every conflict everywhere else, every happening, every activities, every affairs of everybody else. That's why we speak everybody's language. We literally speak everybody's language. We understand their history. We understand everything about them. Yet we are ignorant of our own languages. We are ignorant of our own background. We are ignorant of our own heritage, our culture, our history. And we're in ignorance of the immense contribution that Africa has been providing to the sustenance of the world. You name it, we provide it. Even the things that now the West use for development, for democracy, for everything else, we provide it. We provide it. So it is now time, as we said, for us now to redirect our collective attention back to the motherland, the home, to the birthplace of humanity and the cradle of global civilization and the mother of all inventions and innovations. Today, every organized religion, organized educational setting, organized civilization, everything started out of the motherland. Every organized, mechanism that we have now, was started out of Africa. So we can no longer be at the back seat of development, of innovation, of progress, of power. We cannot accept it anymore. And the younger Africans are saying it is time to turn the table. And that is why we are hosting the first Africa Agenda Summit in New York City. Why New York City? Well, New York City is the capital of the United States. That's number one. Number two, it happened also to be the home to the United Nations, where all the African UN representatives, work and live. So having this summit will enable us to bring all the diplomats that are available, all the stakeholders, all the scholars, and all the audience, and then we do it virtually so that people from all over the world can join. Because it is time we pay attention to what is going on the continent. It is time we participate for its development. It is time to bring Africa back in the forefront as it was, it has been. It is time to move away from colonialism and neocolonialism and enslavement and oppression and deprivation and isolation. Africa can no longer be regarded in those, backwarded attributes. That's why the Africans are saying it is time now to collectively, focus on the issue of Africa. That is why we are launching the first, Africa Agenda Summit, where we discuss everything that benefits Africa and also everything that threatens African sovereignty, African development, Africa's peace. Once people know better, they do better. Once Africans are educated about who they are and their legacy, their contribution, their power, their privilege, then they will pay attention to safeguarding it. But if they don't know, they think that, because, the recent development that the West is enjoying, happened because there's some type of superiority or what. No, hell no. Nothing. Everything is learned from the motherland and exported. Now they're utilizing it, so we can do the same thing. Once you originate something, you can always, repackage it and make it better because that's your child. It's like a woman who, hold babies in the belly for months and months and deliver that baby and then raise that baby. No matter how big that baby is, that woman will always have a handle on that child. So that's what the world is to Africa. The world is Africa's baby. And therefore, Africans who must know how to handle growth and development and innovation and, superpower status. So that's why, today, I decided that, I want to come here, to let you know that there is an upcoming virtual Africa Agenda Summit taking place online. You can be part of it from wherever you are globally. This is a virtual one. it will be done on the platform of Zoom. On the platform of Zoom, and you know, anybody can join. But you know, the best thing is that RSVP, and if you are an expert, subject expert about Africa, whatever, let us know. I mean, we have special speakers, but you never know. Somebody may be very well versed in, Africa's history that can be very beneficial to the audience, and chiming on 5-10 minutes will be beneficial also to the audience. So we just want everybody, Africans and non-Africans, old and young, to begin to pay attention to Africa and what is going on in Africa, and to also begin to pay attention to the positive attributes of Africa. We cannot just follow Africa only from the negative perspective, ethnic conflict and all these things. While there are a lot of conflict, ongoing conflict on the continent, there are also a lot of ongoing conflict outside of the continent. But yet people focus on the positive aspect of other continent and negative aspect of African continent. Time to change that, and we're going to change it. So we want you to join this virtual summit that will be taking place online on Saturday, May 25th, during the celebration of Africa Day. We've been celebrating Africa Day from the inception, but it is now time to really actualize Africa Day. Independence, democratic, superpower, economic progress, Ivy League universities, and self-dependence, self-sufficient, and self-reliance. And let the world partner with Africa in a win-win situation, but not come and rob Africa or divide and mislead Africa or sign these, behind-the-scene contracts that benefits no Africans, and then continue to, hypocritically set up these small charities and sowing the poverty and the deprivation of Africans. And even these charities, majority of the funds raised do not enter Africa. Every single thing about Africa is being robbed and robbed left and right. And we need to change that, and we will change it. It's time to turn the page. And because time has come now for Africans in the diaspora and at home to say our continent is no longer a dead cow before these vultures and hyenas. It is a continent that produced the world, sustained the world. It is a continent that has now come to benefit its people. Superpower, wealthy individuals, independent, free of dependence, safe and nice. And that is what this Africa Agenda Summit will be. And along with that, we need to know, the international policies that have detrimental to Africa's independence and progress, and then we lobby to eliminate them. Because the Africans in the diaspora, their best contribution is to know what the outside governments, whether it's a military, whatever it is, or whether it's a multinational corporation, or whether it is, pseudo charity, international charity that is really not charity. They are, informants working for their respective governments in the platform of charity. Whatever that may be, we need to know about it so that we can put an end to it. We don't want any contract that gives 10% Africans and 90% outsiders. Or we don't want any relationship that only deals with the top government officials and nothing trickle down to the Africans. All these contracts and relationships and monopolizing activities, we're gonna make sure they will not exist anymore, because we're gonna use the same law and the same access that they have to completely eliminate them. And by the way, right now Africa is trending positively. Younger Africans are coming to government, offices, and sometimes by all means necessary, because unfortunately, when you're in a desperate situation, unfortunately, desperation causes you to take desperate measures. And that's why a lot of these young kids, they go into the streets and saying certain things are no longer can be normalized. And we're not going to allow it. And they are making a positive change on the continent, and we're grateful for them. We always encourage them to do things in a civilized way, in an intellectual way and in a democratic way and in a peaceful way. That is our wish. That is our prayer. But nonetheless, things must change. Africa must be free and independent, and Africa must again become at the forefront of the global progress for economic development and independence. So, if you want to join us virtually, just, go online and check Parrot TV. You can see this, or you can go on Facebook and just, search for Africa Agenda Summit. Go search it, Africa Agenda Summit, and you will see it. Thank you all, and God bless you, and may God continue to bless the motherland, the home of the human birth and the cradle of civilization, and the continent that sits in the middle of the universe and provide resources for the development of other continents, Africa. Thank you, and God bless you.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your product and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the website they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our new site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Greetings, my esteemed audience from all over the world. This is the community organizer show that is recorded every Sunday from 2 to 3 in New York City, live from New York City. And my name is Sheikh Musa Drammeh. I am the host of the show. The producer behind the scene is Mutiu Olawuyi, and this show is carried by Parrot TV. It's Parrot TV. So today, the show will be dedicated to our upcoming Daylight Africa Week. Our upcoming Daylight Africa Week, which is Daylight Africa Week 2024. Daylight Africa, for those of you who may not know, is a week-long Africa open house where all the African countries, 54 of them, open their doors to visitors. These visitors could be there for whatever reason. They could be vacationers, honeymooners, investors, researchers, those who were the diaspora going back home, or they could be, the transatlantic, family reunification, individuals that want to go back home and reconnect with their heritage, with their land and with their background. Or it could be government officials, it could be diplomats, it could be anybody. But Daylight Africa Week is an open house week throughout the continent. And whichever country one chooses to go to, you contact Daylight Africa and we'll facilitate it, because Africa needs you. Africa needs you, and Africa needs travelers to it. Therefore, we're here as ordinary Africans in the diaspora and on the continent, promoting the traffic to the motherland. We want Africa to occupy like other continents and countries, a heavy, travelers traffic back to the motherland. That's why, we spoke with, African governments, and we reach out to all of them, and we propose to them to have, this Africa Open House Week every year, September 2nd to September 9th. Every year. This is not just one country, one region. This is a continent-wide, initiative that has been widely praised, universally praised by Africans and those who are friends of Africa. And people said this is very innovative and very much needed and very timely, because the reality is that Africa receives the least tourism traffic in the world. The least. Imagine that. A continent that gives birth to humanity, a continent that is the cradle of civilization, a continent that sustains the development of other continents, a continent that is the richest in terms of natural resources, a continent whose human resources have been scattered all over the world. Yet, that continent that God sent the first human being received the least traffic when it comes to tourism. And because it receives less tourism traffic, it obviously receives less tourism dollars, and therefore it receives less foreign investment dollars. What Africa has been receiving is colonial, relationships, where former colonialists and new colonialists and would-be colonialists have these, contracts and relationships with the continent that has been, raping the continent from get-go, left and right, 24/7, every single day. These nations have been raping Africa of its natural resources, and they are not ashamed of themselves. They are unapologetic, and they're not relenting. Whatever way they're using, they use every deceitful mechanism to continue to maintain their, ungodly, unethical, illegal, immoral, way of reaping Africa's natural resources right out of the hands of these Africans who are entitled to them. So Daylight Africa opens the doors for more discoveries, more connections, more understanding of Africa, and all these, in unjust, relationship that these, former colonialists, current colonialists, and would-be colonialists, have been having. They're having paradise out of Africa while Africans are in hell. And so we thought that it's time, to create this week-long exploration of the continent, so that those, who found it to be, exotic, to have honeymoon there, will use Africa, because there's no more exotic continent than Africa. I guarantee you that. And those who found it to be convenient, to go to Africa for several days vacation, will do it. There's no other continent that is more convenient than Africa. Africa sits in the middle of the universe. You can go to other continents relatively very easy, because God placed Africa in the middle of universe. And those who were kicked out of Africa by the criminals who practice, transatlantic enslavement trade, those who want to reconnect back to their homeland also use this week to go and reconnect. Some of them go and cry, and some of them feel relieved that now they are back home, now they're reconnected, now they're reattached. They have been reattached to their backgrounds and their cultures and their peoples and their homeland. And those who are exploring new investment opportunities outside of the so-called Western world also, use this week, to explore, investable opportunities in a fertile land, unspoiled land, with natural beauty and natural resources and beautiful climate and beautiful waters and, sun shining, moons and suns and stars and everything. So Africa is, your beauty personification. It's like paradise described on earth, but yet Africans are in hell, by and large, and we need to change that. You cannot be in the most endowed continent yet. You are in a most desperate situation or worse condition. That doesn't go well, with Africans nowadays, and that's why we are very grateful that we have this week-long opportunity where we can explore, we can reconnect, we can learn, we can interact, and we can enjoy ourselves on the continent, and we can see the positive, the natural positive, and the ugly side of Africa. We're not saying, Africa does not encounter some of the images and narratives people are peddling, but we're saying, they should not define what Africa is. Africa has more positive attributes than the negative images and negative stories that are being peddled by those who want to keep Africa to be a continent to be avoided. Don't travel there, don't invest there. They're not civilized, nothing is there. And they're lying because multinational corporations have been reaping billions and billions of dollars, from the continent. And this is not even talk about slavery and colonialism. I'm talking about today, corporations. A lot of this technology that we use, traces their components that make them work, from the continent. So we want to change that, but to change it, you got to educate the world, educate Africans and educate travelers so that change will happen. That's why we advocated for Africa Open House, which we call Daylight Africa Week. Again, not one continent, not one region, but it's a continent-wide, week-long exploration, by outsiders and as well as Africans at home. There are a lot of Africans who have not traveled more than one country or two countries. While you have 54 countries on the continent, a lot of Africans don't know what's going on outside of their own country. So that's why Africa Open House Week is not only for foreigners, but also for Africans, to take advantage of their continent. So if you live in the West, travel to some of the Western countries, your neighboring countries. And once you've done that, then you go to other regions, East and North, explore Africa and see the beauty of your continent, see the power of your continent, and see the opportunity of your continent. This way you will love it more. And once you love it more, you will hold on to it. So that any foreigners that come, with interest, then you can create a win-win relationship. Whatever that relationship will be, will not be one-sided relationship where 10% go to the government, which will not trickle down to the population, and 90% go to outsiders. And so that's why even countries that are drilling oils and golds and bauxites and diamonds don't see a lot of money trickling to the population because of the lopsided immoral contracts that are being peddled. I'm in New York City. Unfortunately, a lot of Africans come here and they meet with special interest groups, lobbyists, and they talk about relationships and contracts and opportunities that the public don't know anything about. And so, these relationships are between individuals in power and their representatives and the lobbyists that represent special interests, whether they're governments or corporations. And we need to get away with that. Africans need to benefit from Africa. That's what God intended to be. That's why God gave you the resources for you to benefit. But you cannot have wealthy continent that everybody is ripping and raving, and robbing, and yet the people are desperate. So those days must be history, and we're going to make sure it's history. That's why we have this Africa Open House Week. And so that, the 50 million African Americans who proudly call U.S. home, will go back home and go back to real home. We're not saying they go live there, but they have the right to go to where they came from and, eat and sleep and breathe and watch the sun rise and set, knowing that this is where my forefathers were born in, and this is their land. This is my land. This is my property, and therefore coming here It's a pilgrimage that is as important as any other religious pilgrimage anywhere else. Africa is home to humanity, but more so to those that were, removed, because of transatlantic, enslavement terrorism. So that's what Africa Open House Week is all about: is the exploration, reconnection, and discovery and rediscovery, and to learn thing or two about the continent. And if you like what you see, sky is the limit. If you don't like what you see, at least you know. And if you go to Africa, then you will understand that there are a lot more to the continent than what you have been seeing on your mainstream media or these movies that are nothing but, self-degrading and, everything about slavery, colonialism. Africa was there before slavery and colonialism, and Africa continued to provide what built other continents. So why do you focus on just what happened recently? There are a lot more to Africa than what is being sown outside of the continent. That's why it is extremely important, to participate on Daylight Africa Week. So to participate from wherever you are in the world, even if you are in Africa, go to our website, www.daylightafrica.org, www.daylightafrica.org. So if you go to the website, then you can read some of the preliminary information. I mean, we're building the website. It will be, it will have a lot more content, but at least it has the basic, trajectory, or the basic plans, or the initial information about what Daylight Africa is and what we are working on, and what Africa will be like 5, 10, 15 years from now, due to our efforts, because we're going to germinate, we're going to infect minds and hearts about Africa. We're going to make sure that people understand there are a lot more to Africa than, what they're seeing on their TV screens or mainstream publications. Now, I'll leave you with two things that we want you to join us. I mean, if you are benefactors, if you can help, if you have resources to help, and you love Africa, and you love to uplift the people, and you love to support Africa's development, two things that I am recruiting you to be part of. Because there are a lot of people who have a lot of resources. People are billionaires and multimillionaires, and people have so much that, and they're so generous. So now I'm giving you assignments so that your generosity, will be used to uplift a continent that needs to be uplifted. Number one, Daylight Africa Week leadership has been working on establishing an educational system we call STEMmed Up Africa. STEMmed Up Africa. STEMmed Up stand for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, diversity, unity, and peace. We took STEM program and we add diversity, unity, and peace. Because if you have economic development, but you don't have peace, you have nothing. That's why you have a lot of wealthy people, beautiful homes and states and whatever, but they can't sleep there. The wealth is really to sow, but deep inside, they're not happy, they're not comfortable. For example, even if you look at what is happening in, this musician guy, Diddy, whatever they call it, P. Diddy, rate, his states, multi-million-dollar states, raided by, the government agents. And that person is not sleeping well now because, there's ongoing investigation into this multi-million-dollar luxury homes. But he's not sleeping well because he doesn't know what the end result is. And we've seen so many wealthy people like, another singer, R. Kelly, behind bars, doing, I think, over 20 years with all the wealth. He's not sleeping in homes, he's sleeping behind bars. So therefore, if you have resources and you want to support a good cause, we want you to be part of those initial founders, benefactor founders of STEMmed Up Africa. We're building STEMmed Up so that the African kids who are now unschooled and African kids who are not getting the best education, Ivy League type of education, will finally get what they're entitled to, which is universal education for all the boys and all the girls in STEM subjects, because every developed nation use STEM for their development. Every one of them. STEM develops nations, and Africa is lacking, in STEM subjects. So Africa is more concentrated on religious studies than STEM subjects, and we need to change that. We don't want to undermine religious education, but we want to make sure that STEM subjects take precedence over anything else, because through STEM subjects, then you can develop a nation and nations. And once you develop it, then you increase your longevity, you improve the quality of life, you improve access to all kinds of, life enriching, programs and services. And through education, through good education, through attainment of knowledge, Africa will not only be competitive, but Africa will be number one, because it has already been endowed with the natural resources. So you couple that with intelligence and intellectuals, Africa will not be competitive. It will be the number one in everything that is good in this world. And that is why we want to recruit you to join us. We don't have the funds. We have the idea, we have the commitment, we are working with other people, and people are signing up. That's why I'm highlighting the need for more benefactors, to see that we don't care about charity as much as we care about educating people not to receive charity. If these young Africans, most African countries have over 50% majority youth population. So if we educate them and equip them with, top-notch STEM subject education, Africa will no longer be given a penny as a charity. Africa will give billions back, not receiving charity. So that is why, we're very committed to making sure that, we recruit as many benefactors as we can find them, to uplift the continent by uplifting its young citizens and equip them with the necessary tools of knowledge. Because as, many leaders said, including, Nelson Mandela, knowledge is the best and most powerful weapon which you can use to change your circumstances, your community, your nation, or the entire world. Knowledge. And that is why STEMmed Up Africa, is something that we're committed to. So if you want to donate, or you want to participate, you want to learn more about it, go to stemmedup.org, stemmedup.org, www.stemmedup.org, stemmedup.org, and then read it, stemmedup.org, online, which is STEMDUP.org, STEMDUP.org, stemmedup.org. Please join us, because in order for us, to create a beautiful Africa again, we must educate young Africans so that they will not be left out. Now, second recruitment that I want to recruit you into, which is tied into the STEM, but this is urgent. Last year, the leadership of Daylight Africa also launched a program we call intelligent retention zone, because in recent years, young Africans have been sacrificing their lives trying to escape Africa. And they clearly tell you, we don't care the level of danger, we don't care what percentage of chances of dying, we're not staying. Anytime that they have the chance to leave, they leave, and they go to the Western world, or they even go to the Middle East now, and they become like subservient. I know that because I live in New York. You come to the West, no matter who you are, you start from the bottom. And in the Middle East, they're servants, they're maids, and they're being abused and tortured, and horrendous things are being done, to the Africans in the Middle East, because there are reports that have indicated that they're being mistreated, because they regard them as less than human beings. Their dignities and values and honor and rights are not protected, because they're there from impoverished background trying to make things. In the West, this is different. The West, they don't do that. The West is open, and they can empower you as long as you follow the rules and regulations. You're willing to work hard. You're willing to study. then you can make it. And that's why a lot of Africans in the West happen to be among, the top income earners, middle class income earners, because the West is beneficial to those who prioritize good education, hard work, honest living, healthy lifestyle, and patriotism. So we have launched intelligent retention zone so that we can counter this deadly, backdoor schemes that are taking hundreds and hundreds of lives of Africans trying to escape. So how can you help us? Again, you go to daylightafrica.org, and donate so that we can open these centers, so that these university students will have jobs. How do we do it? We talk to multinational corporations to outsource some of their labor to the continent. And so what you're paying here, $80 an hour, maybe you can pay an African who is more qualified or as qualified, maybe $60 an hour, and they will do the same job. So you save $20 and you empower, individuals in poor countries. So that's why the intelligent retention zone, we want to retain intelligence in the continent. We don't want the intelligence to leave the continent so that the continent continue to be, brain drained. Because every continent wants intelligence in them. America benefits from students from, different countries that are highly, highly innovative. And Africa needs the same thing. So that's the second endeavor that we're recruiting benefactors to support. Intelligence retention zone. These are centers that will be built in various African countries so that we can retain the intelligence among the youth. Those who are not schooled, we find them schooled. Those who are not academic material, we find them vocational training. They could be mechanic, they could be bricklayer, they could be roofer, they could be carpenter, they could be whatever it is, because you don't have to be a PhD or master holder. People can be high school or not even high school, yet they can be successful, because through vocational training, everybody, could be successful. And this is very, very important. Even the Western world now, they're finally realizing that vocational training is very much needed, because according to the report that I read a couple of years ago, over 60% of the jobs that require college degree, you can do it without a high school diploma. They require, a graduate degree, but yet when you get there, then you realize that it can be done, even those who don't have high school diploma. So if you are not academic material, and not everybody is academic material, then we provide you with vocational training so that you can use, whatever training you have to empower yourself and free yourself from desperate situation and extreme poverty, and so that Africa will be built from one family to another, and that is why we need benefactors. Intelligent retention zone by Daylight Africa Week. So you can go to daylightafrica.org and donate or support. If you have materials, whatever it is, then whatever it is that can support the program, we are highly appreciated. With that being said, again, I just want to thank you so much, and I want you to invite you to watch this show every Sunday from 2 to 3 on Parrot TV. This is the community organizer show every Sunday from 2 to 3 New York time on Parrot TV. Again, my name is Sheikh Musa Drammeh. I am your host, and behind the scenes producing these shows and many others is Mutiu Olawuyi. God bless you all. Happy Easter, happy Ramadan, happy Passover, and happy every other holiday that other religious groups are observing. Thank you, and see you next Sunday.
Undoubtedly, Africa is the best tourism destination on Earth. The continent is blessed with the most conducive atmosphere. To feel and enjoy these blessings, join the most productive one-week tour of the continent organized by Daylight Africa every September.